Before we start the show, may I ask you for a favor? Would you be willing to rate and review the podcast on the app wherever you listen to it? If you're willing to do this and send me a screenshot of your review, I will send you a Starbucks gift card in gratitude of you taking this time to do that. So it's super simple for you to do this. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, please leave a review on that app. Take a screenshot of the review and then email it to support@yoursalesmaven.com, and then we will send you back a $5 Starbucks gift card. Your ratings and reviews allow other people to take a chance and maybe listen to the podcast. So I'm so grateful if you would be willing to do this on my behalf. Thank you so much. And now please enjoy the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master the sales conversation. Today's episode is an on-air coaching call with our very own Sales Maven Society member, Sarah Wallace. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm really looking forward to you and what we're going to talk about today. You had posted some great questions for me in the society. And I was like, how about if you come on the show and let me answer all of these questions? So we're going to get into, I think, some good stuff. Hopefully it'll be very helpful for you as the listener. But Sarah, before we do that, please tell everybody a little bit about you and your business.
Okay. I am an Enneagram and visibility coach, which really is just helping people pair their expertise and their products, the services that they offer with their personality so that it feels really aligned and it feels like something that they actually want to be doing, right? There's so many different ways that we can package things and we can market ourselves. So my focus is really helping people get visible, but not necessarily what worked for me or what worked for somebody else, but what will work for somebody, for that individual based on their Enneagram type.
Okay. Now, if somebody hasn't heard of the Enneagram yet, would you tell us a little bit about what the Enneagram is and what kind of information somebody would get? Like what would be the advantage to learning about the Enneagram about yourself?
I would love to talk about that. So the Enneagram is basically at its core a personality test. There's kind of two big differences. It's 9 different types. And rather than behavior, like you'll get with someone like the Myers-Briggs or your strengths finders, it is more about the why, the motive behind the behavior. So we could have 5 people in a room doing the exact same way or behaving the exact same way, but the reason why could be very different. And then the second thing that I think is really helpful about the Enneagram versus some of the other assessments out there, which honestly, though, anytime you can learn about yourself, I think is a great opportunity, regardless of the tool that you use.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, we spend so much time studying other people. We rarely take the time to learn and study ourselves. So whatever tool you're using. But the Enneagram also is very fluid. So it shows you where you're at, where you're kind of at on autopilot. And then it also gives you some insight into maybe where you slide down into when you're not living your healthiest. And then it also gives you a specific path for growth. And then there's different emotional levels of health. So again, you could have 5 people who are the same type 7, for example, but again, they could all look different based on, are they growing? Are they stressed out? Where are they at in an emotional health? So it can get kind of, I don't want to say complicated. It's complex at times, but that's because we're human beings and we're complex.
I love that answer because, so we'll see if you agree with this or not, but from my background in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, one of the things that we learn a lot is that by being able to pay attention to habits and patterns, you can start to pick up cues in the way people like to communicate. But the thing that I think people often forget is that it's context specific, because you might show up in a certain area of your life and have certain traits or certain communication styles, but in another context or with a different type situation or scenario, you might actually have a little bit of some change to that. So I don't know, would you say the Enneagram is similar in that way?
Yeah, it is, because there's, on a day-to-day basis, kind of like that context, like you might be having a really stressful moment. You might have a really stressful day, a season, and you will show up differently. There's different, actually, without getting too complicated, there's different numbers that you will go to when you're stressed out. So, and then also, when you're having a great day, or when you're feeling like you're really growing, and it is, and it can change, it absolutely can change.
Okay. So I love that, because my all-time favorite quote, I don't know if you've heard me say this before, is "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." And
that's good.
And so I like the idea of having a little bit of flexibility. I find that when people say like, it's just one way, that's the only way it is, it's this hard and fast, like, yes, no, black, white, true, false kind of mentality. My background in NLP always wants to go, well, there's some options for change here. There's some possibility that we could be looking at this a different way. And, but learning about yourself, I think, is one of the most important things that you can do to understand your own habits, your own patterns, and how to be the best version of yourself that you can be in certain moments or certain situations. So like what you're helping people with around visibility. So I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, so it's okay if you're like, why are you asking me that question, Nikki? We can move on. But tell me a little bit about what are some of the benefits that clients who work with you that start to get a better understanding of their Enneagram, how does that impact their visibility in the marketplace or as they grow their business?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the things you had just touched on it, your best self or your best life, or like confidence, your most confident self. Like these phrases get thrown around and it's like, okay, but like, what does that actually mean? Like, how am I doing that? And self-awareness is in my mind, or my opinion, the key to unlocking all of that. So if you're not confident on video, for example, like you just are terrified of video, maybe there's another tool out there for you to use, but also maybe there's some stories, some beliefs that you've been carrying around, and it's pretty type specific sometimes when you get into those both your strengths and your roadblocks. So let me give you an example if I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have do you know your number, by the way, Nikki?
Yes. Okay. I've meant to go back and look. It's been a few years. I'm pretty sure I'm a 2 with a really strong 3 wing. Does that sound right?
Okay. Yes, it does. And I yes, that makes sense. I mean, from what I know of you, and how much you give and help, because the 2 is known as the helper, the caretaker, the giver. Okay. And so, for example, let's say somebody who is a type 2 and is afraid of showing up on video. But if you can understand that it's like, well, we're here to help somebody, like, you kind of uncover their motive, what's going to drive that behavior. And that might allow them to be open to that possibility as an avenue for getting visible. Whereas a 3 who is really focused on being successful, and more than being successful, being seen as successful. And so they may be perfectly fine with it because they're more comfortable being in the spotlight. But at the same time, a stereotypical average health 3 won't want to try a lot of new things because they don't want to fail at it. So they don't want to be seen as not successful. And so their block might be, I don't want to say something. I've never done this before and I'm just not good at it. So their work is going to be, well, just try it. Do a couple practice. Even if you're recording yourself 20 times on your iPhone, you don't have to post it, just practice. So, and then there's some of us who are much more comfortable and much more assertive and decisive. And then there are others who are more withdrawn. And the advice that you would give to, somebody who's more withdrawn is going to be very different than the person who's decisive and confident. Right. And so that's why we get these different pieces of advice, like just relax or speak up more. And it's like, well, you might already be doing that. And so even the advice that you're allowing to come in and whether it's business advice or life advice needs to be kind of put through a filter. And once you take yourself off autopilot and really understand who you are, what you want, where you want to go, then you can say, oh, that advice. Yep. Probably needed that, or like, I'm already doing that, or that's just not relevant, rather than getting overwhelmed that you're not doing everything.
Oh my gosh. I love this answer so much. The idea of, by understanding yourself a little bit, it also is going to help you decide what to take in from other people and how best, people can deliver information to you so that you can take it in, versus being willing to say like, that's not a good fit for me, or I'm going to, do something else. I also am secretly laughing because the example that you gave about being seen on video for like a 2. So I've had my business now for 8 years. And when I first started my business, the first couple of years, I taught all of my classes in an audio conferencing type. That was, so you could come to the class, but you couldn't see me. It was all audio. And I loved teaching that way. And clients at the last year were like, Nikki, it would be so much more impactful if we could see you. And I kept saying, you don't need to see me because it's not about me. It's about the content, because I hate seeing myself on video. Every clip of video that I see makes my stomach like tighten up, even to this day. And it's so painful for me. But it was like I finally got out of my own way and realized that even though still to this day, I hate seeing myself on video, it isn't about me. And it's never been about me. It's always been about the work. And that's the only way that I can show up on video is when I think they're not here to see me, but if it helps them see me and it helps them take in the information that I'm delivering, then I will step outside of my own limiting, belief about myself and what I look like on video. And I'll just do it anyway, because it is my way of being of service. So anyway, I'm just laughing at your example.
Well, and I'm trying not to laugh over you and cut off the audio, but I'm like, yes, very 2 vibes right there.
Yes. So you get me. I appreciate that.
I see you. Yes, I see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't we all want to be seen? I love it so much. Okay. So tell me a little bit about what are the ways that people tend to work with you? How do you work with clients?
Okay. Right now I'm working with clients one-on-one. So we'll start off with a typing session. It's typically, understanding what type you are, and then moving into an 8-week program one-on-one, and then also paid speaking and paid workshops.
Perfect. And I think that might lead nicely to where we're going to go next of where you're saying. So if you want to know your Enneagram and how this is going to serve you in your business, then you're going to want to get a hold of Sarah, and we'll give you all of her contact information at the end. But this is a coaching call for you, Sarah. So how can I be of service to you today? What would be useful for us to chat about?
Okay. So prior to getting into the Enneagram, I really was just doing marketing and specifically teaching Instagram marketing. And I ran a couple of groups and I really enjoy the group. And I would love to do some sort of like community group offer starting next year. But my question that I keep getting stuck on is this like a course where I'm teaching people about the Enneagram and visibility, or is it a membership where we're talking about the same thing, but it would just be because your visibility never really ends. So no. You can hear me, like, I'm even like doing this out loud now, but it's like, is this something that's like, I want to stop and start, or do I want to have membership? Do you do both? Like, how do you know which one to do? What questions should I be asking, I guess?
Okay. So this is such a great question. And it's something that, I've been there in my own business too. I will say I started with offering courses. So that was, one, memberships weren't near what they are today. And by offering courses, there's the upside is it's a limited period of time. You can decide, I'm going to offer it once, twice, 10 times a year, whatever you decide to do. And, you're really always then selling the next course. Like, you're not selling 5 courses down the road because you're selling like, this is what's coming. So it helps keep you very focused in your business. And then if you want to take time off and like, okay, so I'm not going to teach the course in the summer or whatever, you have that type of flexibility in your schedule. So that's nice from a course standpoint. The downside, I would say, to the course option is that you're always selling the course and filling, so now you're constantly trying to fill a program or fill a course. So if you say, I want to teach it with 20 people in it, or, 50 people or 10 people, whatever your number is, doesn't matter what the number is, but it still does require you to be selling it over and over again. That's not to say in any way that you're not selling the membership all the time. You are. It's just a different type of sale. So one of the advantages of teaching a course a few times before you put it into a membership is you're going to have a built-in audience. So that would be one of the questions that I would challenge you to ask yourself, knowing like how long you've been in business, what kind of audience you have, what kind of customer base you have. If you think back and like to the customers that you've worked with or clients that you've had this last year, and maybe even, I don't know if we're talking like 50 or if we're talking hundreds. So you're going to have to help me with that. But if you went and actually like created some kind of a spreadsheet, for instance, doesn't have to be a spreadsheet, but some way to track it, and looked and said, asked yourself in a really serious way, okay, so I see that I worked with, Alice. Is Alice likely to want more? And do you think she would be somebody who would be interested in a membership? Or is she somebody who is like, course, one and done? That's what she wants. And maybe look and go, okay, so do I really have an audience for this? Because I think it's really, really hard to build a membership when you don't have an audience. And I know not everybody will agree with me on that, but that's been my experience. Is like, what's your audience like? So just hearing me say that, does that sway you one way or the other? Does that make you go, oh, I need to explore this more? So I just want to know what your response is to that.
Yeah. It has not been hundreds. So the audience thing is, and that was, I guess, a follow-up question we won't have to get to right now, but
I want to hear all your questions.
Okay. It was then, if I do a membership, is it like a $27 like entry point, or is it like the life coach school, $300 a month, or something in between?
Yeah.
And the thing that, and maybe this is just a story that I'm telling myself, but I have a presentation coming up, and there's 131 women in this virtual presentation. And for some reason, I'm like, oh, in these workshops that I'm doing, it feels like a membership would be an easier sell, or like an easier invitation at the end of these things. Cause I love how I'm not trying to be like Nikki, but I just love how you talk about your membership at the end of the, podcast. And it's always like the same offer, and it's the same thing. And it took me a while to join, but I kept hearing that same core message.
Yeah.
And I like that. But what you're saying about the audience, I may not be there yet.
Well, so I love all that you shared. Thank you for that. So if we kind of break some of this down into smaller, like bite size, and so first back to this pricing question, for instance, I don't know that it really matters that much what you charge as much as it matters what kind of an audience have you built and what are they willing to pay for the type of service that you're delivering. Okay. So, like I know people who offer sales memberships, and I remember somebody telling me like she was charging like $47 a month. And I was like, well, I'm not doing my membership for $47 a month because I understand the value that people get out of it. And frankly, it's not worth it to me to do it. So that's the other thing you have to look. Now, maybe she wants 10,000 members. I don't really want 10,000 members in my membership. Like I have a number in my mind. And maybe if I had the audience, frankly, that I could easily get 10,000 members at $47 a month, maybe I would feel differently about it. But the way that I feel today is I like the number that I have in my membership now. Of course, I do want to grow it. I have a goal. And I like the price point. And I find that the little bit of the higher price points, and I did start at a very low, I think realistically, it was $97. And I've offered opportunities for people to come in at smaller price points, especially in the earlier years. And then I always let my people keep whatever price they came in at. So whatever price you come in at, I have not yet ever raised anybody's price. Now, if they leave and come back, they come back at the new price. But I'm finding that the quality of my membership keeps going up as far as like the quality of the people that I'm getting when I'm not doing a $47 membership, when I'm doing, it's $147 a month. So people take the work a little bit more serious. That's not to say I don't offer deals, because I do. At the end of every podcast, I offer a special opportunity for people to come and join. And it gives people that opportunity, like, can I dip my toe in the water? So we would want them to have those opportunities with you. Okay, so here's the other thing that I'll say about this. Okay. And I'm not trying to talk you out of a membership, because I'm a huge fan of memberships. I love my membership. It's been the most satisfying thing I've done in my business. And it's also been the foundation that has allowed for me to really grow the revenue in my business. And I think that's one of the, I'm like all over the board here. So you can tell me if I'll try to rein it in here a little bit. But it's one of the things that I have found that a lot of times people think, well, I'm going to start this membership. I'm going to get 200 members. I'm going to charge $100 a month. And I'm not going to, and I'm only going to work, 4 hours a week. I haven't found that to be true. I also, when I first started my membership, I had this goal of, I wanted to have a certain number of members. I wanted it to generate essentially 5 figures a month in business, like just as recurring revenue. It's taken me years to get it to that level. And what I have found, though, is that my members tend to support my other offers. So that's been super satisfying and has allowed for my business, because you can't have a warmer audience than the people who are paying you money every single month, who are ready for what's next. Now, some people come in, they're in the membership, and that's the only thing they do. And most people who come into the membership take a masterclass with me, or do a strategy session with me at some point, or they do like something else. So it's a good way to feed some of your other offers. Yeah. Now, with all of that, again, love the idea of membership. The other thing that I have found is it takes a lot to get somebody to go from not knowing you to joining your membership. So even like you're a great example, because you said, like, I've listened to your podcast. I've heard this offer multiple times before I was ready to join. So are you do you have an opportunity where people are hearing you multiple times before they can take that next step to join your membership? And it, like you said, like, I'm going to speak to this group of 100 and some women. But when's the opportunity that you're going to speak to those same women again? Because think about how many times people have what's known as a convincer strategy. It's a certain number of times they'll say no to something before they'll say yes. So I don't know what your convincer strategy was, but chances are it was probably more than 3 podcast episodes. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah.
How many podcast
it was.
episodes do you think? Okay.
It was probably like 20.
Okay. So there it is. So it's like you had to, and not that, and everybody's convincer strategy is different, but Sarah's in this particular case, to take that next step with Nikki, Sarah had to hear Nikki 20 times mention something. So she had to hear Nikki 20 times mention something before she was ready to say yes to the next thing. So with that in mind, one of the things I would maybe encourage you to think about is, and I actually don't know this about you, Sarah. Do you have your own podcast?
I do.
You do. Okay. So think about what is your number one, what's the drive behind the podcast? What's the number one thing you want it to do for you in your business?
I want it to be a relationship builder, really, and to be able to connect with people more than just like an Instagram post. Yes. Because I think about the people that I have bought from, and I've listened to their podcast. So I'm just basing that off my own experience, but it's because I felt like I knew them.
Yes. Okay. So you do have this opportunity, right? So you already have a podcast. So you already have a built-in audience. So that's actually going to make me go, you might actually be primed for a membership. If you have a built-in audience, people who are listening to every single week, and you're giving them an opportunity to take that next step. Now, when I started my podcast, I was super intentional that the number one thing that I wanted the podcast to do was to drive membership. Now, it doesn't just drive membership. Some people will hopefully listen to my podcast, even if they never join the membership. But there's a lot of people who have listened to the podcast and then joined the membership. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do in that case. But I am also really intentional about, this is why I do on-air coaching calls. This is why I do sales success stories with the podcast, because it helps people get a sense of like, what's it going to be like if I work with Nikki? Because the last thing I ever want anybody to do is show up and be like, I've listened to your podcast 20 times and you don't even seem like the same person, right? Like, I don't want anybody to be surprised when they show up. I want them to be like, oh yeah, it's Nikki. Like I know you because we've been hanging out. We've been on 20 walks together or whatever that is. So if you have that built-in audience, that's awesome. But taking a step back here to these 130 women that you're going to speak to, one of the things I have also found is sometimes if they've only heard you once or twice, having a smaller offer to hear Sarah more, to get more from Sarah, may be the place for you to start. I have found, I was just having this conversation earlier today in a mastermind that I'm in, and I was sharing with the women in this group that I have switched up my opt-in series. So when you join the list, when you join my list, so people who are joining my list typically have maybe heard me on somebody else's podcast, or they've seen some kind of a post and they've wanted more. They've come to my website and they've signed up for the free ebook. So what I was doing originally is I would have this email sequence that at some point I would make a special offer for them to come into the Sales Maven Society. And it was falling flat over and over and over again. And I got really frustrated about it. So what I did instead is I gave people, now, when you join, you're going to get some stuff from me. And then at some point, I'm going to make you an offer, but it isn't to join the Sales Maven Society. It's like a starter offer. It's access to a course that's pre-recorded, and it's really good content. They get access to this course. And then right behind the offer for the course is an offer to join the membership. And I'm finding that that is working better than just driving people right to the membership. Now, I still am driving my listeners to the membership because, again, sometimes people have listened to me 20. Thank you for listening to 20 episodes. I'm going to say that I think we're coming up on pretty soon here. It'll be my 100th episode. You're going to be one of the in the 90s, right?
I feel like I've listened to almost all of them. Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'm super honored by that. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, how can somebody listen to me that much? But I'm really honored by it. So, okay. So that's that's what I'm going to say to you about like your 130 people that you're speaking to, because you have these opportunities to get in front of somebody. You may need both. That's kind of my really long answer to get there. You might need something that is a group, or not a group, but like a first like deep dive into Enneagram, or something around visibility in the Enneagram with Sarah. That's like that one step. And then right behind that, you could have your offer for your membership.
Yeah, I like that. And as I'm thinking about like what I love so much about your membership is the group. And also though, I've gotten so much from the courses inside, like I wasn't expecting that. And so I guess my question, I guess this is a question, is did those come from the course that you created previously, or did you record those specifically for your membership?
Okay. So before I started the membership, I was teaching a 5-week course, and it was called Savvy Selling. So it was 5 different modules taught over 5 weeks. And then because I love to create content, so that's just me. That doesn't mean that needs to be you, but I love to create content. So then I created Savvy Selling 2, which was 5 more like modules of different content. So it was all like sales stuff. And then I taught those for a couple of years. And frankly, like I bore myself, like I find myself boring. So to teach the same thing over and over, I get a little bit bored. So that's when the membership was born, because I was able to take those 10 core modules. And then I think I added 2 more, and I just re-recorded them on Zoom. People always ask me like, did you buy this really expensive, like studio time and all? And no, I just used Zoom, me talking to my camera, and recorded these courses, put them in the membership. And then I have added some stuff over the years. Like usually I add maybe 1 or 2 new courses a year. But I also, inside there's so much content in there that sometimes it overwhelms people. So I've taken a step back from even putting that much more content in there, because there's a lot of new content that's added every month, just with the coaching calls, just with the email edits that I do for everybody's emails, like all of that content, there's new content every single month. So I'm not recording new trainings every month. So that's my answer to your question.
Okay.
You could start, I think this is the other thing people sometimes think, like you look at somebody like me who's had my membership since 2017 and you go, I don't have that much content. Yeah. You don't need that much content. You probably don't even need 1/10 of the content that I have that would be valuable to people, because they can only consume so much before they start to feel full. So you want to give them, organized content. So hopefully it makes it easy for them to pick and choose the pieces that they want. I always actually feel bad when somebody tells me I came into your course or your membership and I binged all your content. And I think like, oh my gosh, like that's totally fine if that's your way, but you probably only picked up like 1 or 2 things from each course, but there's probably 20 things you could pick up if you went a little bit slower, if you digested it, if you implemented it and came back and test it, come back, watch something again, and then go in it. And then it becomes kind of who you are, versus somebody who comes in, they're like, I binged your content. And then they'll come back and watch it a year later and they'll be like, this is new content. I'm like, no, it's the same content. It's just, you went too fast. Like you tried to consume it too fast, which is fine. It's totally up to people, but don't feel like you have to have a ton of content. If you're teaching courses now, you could pick your core, like the core things that you want people to know, and build those out, organize them. I mean, that's one of the things that people pay for membership, is to have curated content. And frankly, if you have podcast episodes, you could curate your podcast episodes in some kind of organization. Like, let's say you're going to pull all of the episodes that you've done that describe like Enneagram 2s, for instance, right? You could put links to those episodes that now is curated content. So your 2s would be like, that's so satisfying because now I don't have to go through all of Sarah's podcasts. I could just listen to these ones right here and they're going to feel very specific to me, right? That's curated content.
Okay. I love that idea. And then like I have worksheets and things already. So just like making type 2, a type 2 section or type 3 section could be kind of fun.
If you wanted to break it in sections, that's just me like throwing that out there because I'm a 2. So guess what's interesting to me too. But think about what would be most beneficial. What are the things you want to talk about? What are the things you want to, because once you build a membership, you'll talk about the same things over and over again. So what are the things that people get the most value out of when they work with you? That's content you want to put into your membership because you're going to say it a bunch of times. And it's actually really satisfying to members when they go through a training and they hear you teach something. And then they get on a live call with you and then you say the same thing because they're like, oh, Sarah walks her talk. I know what Sarah's going to say now because I've heard her say it. I went through this training and it's really satisfying to their brains.
Yeah. And then it doesn't feel like overwhelming, like something new that I need to learn again. It just kind of reiterates that. Okay. I have a quick question about this because something that is sticking with me that you said at the very beginning. And so this is like, just, going back to the Enneagram, this is speaking to my Enneagram 7, who values like freedom and variety and choices. And when you said you could take a break from the course, like if you had a course, like you get to like take a break and I'm like, oh yeah. Like I know that a membership is a lot of work and it sounds amazing and there's so many benefits, but I do wonder about that. Like, what would you say about burnout or like, how would you create a membership to avoid that?
Well, one is you could set some expectations up front with people. So you could say things like, which I'm not good at this. So know that you're taking advice from somebody in this particular case who is not walking her talk here as I give you this advice. But I think I do think it's important to set expectations. So for instance, you could say, all questions are answered Monday through Friday from this time to this time. You could put out a schedule 3, 6, 9, 12 months in advance that says like, these are going to be down times. These are going to be quiet times in the membership because that would be time that you're going to be away. I think as long as you set expectations, then people will respect that. But when you just like go off the grid because you're on vacation, but nobody knows you're on vacation and then they're not getting any kind of response or any interaction with you, I think that feels it feels bad to the person. It might feel like to them, you're out of integrity because I'm paying for this membership. Why don't I have it? Only if you're going to give access to you, which by the way, I have friends who have memberships where people don't get any access to them. They get access to their content, but they're not ever getting on live calls with people. They're like, that's not even a part of their membership. So that's one of the brilliant things about membership is you can build it to fit your business and your style and what it is that you want to do. I happen to really love live calls with my people because I obviously love to coach. And that is super satisfying to me. And I do 2 of those a month and I've never not done them. Since I started offering 2 a month, but I've never said like, hey, I'm going to take the month of December off. Although I think honestly, I probably could to the group as long as I gave them enough notice and most people would be fine with it. So I think it's just about setting expectations. Okay. Yeah. And knowing that you can change those expectations because if you do decide to start a membership, which it sounds like you have the audience for, your membership will evolve and you have to give yourself permission. And you also want to plant seeds for people to know that this is what it is today. This is the offer that you get today. Now you have to be careful about taking stuff away and then leaving the price point the same. Like there's things you can make adjustments to, but for the most part, I think as long as you're really clear and people know what to expect, then it's satisfying for them and they'll stay and hang around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have one more question.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on like alumni memberships? Like somebody completed a program and then additional support can be provided.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think if, especially when you build like a group, and there's some group camaraderie, there is some advantage to giving them a way to stay connected through you and through your content. So I love the idea of alumni. I've never actually heard it called that. So I love that term. So are you suggesting that you have to go through the course before you could join the membership? Is that what you're thinking? Or?
Yeah, I guess it would be, I guess I've also heard it like a back-end membership. And then just thinking about, because you had mentioned like quality, and that's definitely something that's like very enticing. So attracting the right kind of people.
Yep.
And just thinking of ways to do that. And it's like, well, somebody made the investment both monetarily and their time and energy into working with you and completing a course, then it feels like, gosh, that would be somebody that I would love to continue to work with in some way. Yeah.
So one of the ways that you could do that, if this is interesting to you, and this is something that I do with my private coaching clients, like only a certain level of private coaching, my VIP clients, I bonus them for a certain number of months into the membership. And then should they decide to stay after their bonus period is up, they get a special rate because, they've already made a pretty significant investment with me. So they get a special rate to stay in the membership. And I have quite a few people who started as VIP clients and are still in the membership today. Some will stay for a couple months. Some won't stay at all because they're like, I don't care about the membership. I really just only want to work with you privately. And so everything in between, and you probably will find that too in your own. So I would say, but it's not forever. That's the thing. They don't go through the program and they get bonused in the membership forever, unless you're building that into the price of the program. Because otherwise you don't want to just run a membership and pretty soon you're like, okay, so I have 200 members and it brings in $100 a month, right? Like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Okay. I love that idea though. Like something about that feels really exciting. Like, using the membership as a value add instead of thinking like discounting or, that kind of thing. It's like, how could I make this even more amazing? So I love that. Even just, with, I'm doing one-on-ones right now. So, that kind of sounds fun.
Have your one-on-one clients been requesting something more from you? Have you gotten any of those like, hey, Sarah, I really want to continue, but I don't know that I don't know that I need to re-up for what we just did, but what else is there?
Yeah. What I had done, and I stopped doing this because it became kind of overwhelming, was I would offer like Voxer support or like a hotline for a certain amount. To be honest, Nikki, this might disappoint you. I don't know that I do. I know that I don't do a great job of offering an additional opportunity because I'm
okay.
Yeah. Cause I'm like, well, I don't know that you need another, 3 months, whatever. But, and then I just kind of like, gosh, it's so great working with you. Can you give me a testimonial? It's kind of like, I can't wait to see you around. Can't wait to see what you do.
Okay. So I'm not disappointed. And I will say there's probably some business there that you're missing out on. And you may find that by having a next step offer for people, and it could be this step down, it could be a step down into membership, that it's more satisfying to them. Some people are fine, just like, hey, I worked with you and now I'm done. And they're going to go off and do their other thing. And, but I don't know, even that I have found, because I have many, many people who have worked with me for a period of time, left. Some have even unsubscribed from my newsletter, even like they're like so done with me. And then a year later, they come back and they re-up for some other work. Sometimes it's like I have multiple people that do multiple VIP days, right? Like I think I have probably a dozen people who have done multiple VIP days with me, but it's over the course of, a couple years where they'll like go have a VIP day, do the work with me, go do their own business for a year or two, come back. I need a VIP day, Nikki, because something's changed or I'm ready to up level in some way. So you do want to make sure that you're continuously putting offers out there to invite people back, because frankly, it's always easier to earn repeat business than it is to earn business from somebody who's never paid you any money.
Yeah.
So that might be something that you also think about. Not that that gets us off the membership track, but I will say, if you haven't made an offer recently to former clients, some kind of an offer, could be a maintenance plan. It could be a couple strategy sessions with you. It could be something. Now's the time probably for you to do it before the end of the year.
Okay.
Give them a way to do a next step with you. And it's totally fine for all the people who are like, no, I'm good. That's not who the offer's for. The offer is for the person that's like, Sarah, I need you. Thank you so much. This offer came at the right time for me, and I need this next step with you. And it could be the membership, could be the group course, could be the virtual course if you decide to go that route, or it could just be some type of a maintenance thing with you where we do, 2 check-in calls over the next 3 months or something like that with them.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. That's the gentle reminder I needed.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right,
and
good.
Yeah. And I do feel like something like the Enneagram, especially, and probably any topic can be, but it's like, I've been studying the Enneagram personally for, over 3 years at this point, and I still don't know. I don't know. I never will. And I'm continually running into issues. And that was one of the things that drew me to a membership, was because it was like, oh man, I'm running into this issue, or like I'm having this block again. And I know we talked about it, but so I kind of felt like, oh, this is just, we're always going to have these kind of issues and challenges. But, at the same time, I do kind of like the idea of maybe testing a course, of some sort, and seeing, kind of how that feels first. So you like the group program, so it may behoove you to put out some type of a group program, let people go through it. And then you can also test the waters with them and see how many of you would like to continue on. I'm building out a membership. Here's what's included right now. Here's your founding member rate. And let's go. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And then now it's, once you launch something like that, now it's about finding new members for it, because you'll always have churn with people who will come in for a month or 2 months or 3 months. And, and then you have other people. I think I still have members in my group from 2017 that like you say, it's like, it's not that they haven't gotten what they needed, but things change, right? And what you think you need right now, there are certain skill sets, or there are certain lessons that they're like, okay, all of a sudden I'm doing all these consultation calls, whereas before I was just sending a bunch of emails or whatever. Things change, right, in people's business. So it makes sense for them to still have access to content. Membership's a great way to do that. I feel like I tried to talk you out of it, but I wasn't actually trying to talk you out of it. I just want to make sure that you understand with membership that I think there's probably more work behind it than people think. And it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, I'm not saying I spend 80 hours a week on my membership. I absolutely do not spend anything like that. But it is a constant finding new members, keeping the members engaged. And that's, the building piece of it. I will say my membership now is to a point where my members tend to engage more than I. Like, I'm not the one who's having to initiate conversation. They're initiating conversations, and then I get to participate in the things that are most interesting to them. But that was not the way it was in the first 2 years. It was a lot of me initiating, sharing tips, sharing techniques, sharing ideas, asking questions, and looking for ways to get them to engage. And then as it grows, people get more comfortable.
asking questions and sharing their own wins and sharing their like, here's what somebody just sent me. What do we think about this from a sales standpoint? Like all of that stuff that gets shared in there now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about the sales topic in your group specifically, it's like, I spent 5 years in sales before I went out on my own. And I'm still like, I'm still running to issues and the questions that people ask and the content that you have. So, absolutely. Just second that.
Okay, good. All right. So as we wrap up today, I always like to end with 2 questions for you. So the first one is, if you're willing to answer, is what's one benefit you've received from being in the Sales Maven Society so far?
Okay. So I did have one plan, but can I add in a second one also?
You sure can.
Okay.
You sure can.
So what just came to mind as you were talking was the networking piece, and just like the quality of the member that you attract is amazing. And I actually have a podcast interview with one of the members who I heard on the podcast, and then we connected on one of the live coaching calls. And so that's been really fun.
Awesome.
And the other thing, just to be like very specific, is there was a training about, and then like, I'm just telling on myself, and this is almost embarrassing.
No, you're so sweet for sharing. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, you had done, and I forget which training it was, but it was, it's changed my life a little bit, is the stop offering free coaching calls. And I was like, oh my God, I think I was like turning red as I was watching that video. And then I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, because I was like, oh yeah, somebody else that I had learned from a long time ago was like, give them a taste of your style. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I've been doing, and they haven't really been overly successful. So second that, but then the idea of the assessment was so awesome. And my boyfriend is a therapist, and he's like, we do intake assessments all the time. And he's like, we actually charge for our assessments because they're so valuable to see where somebody is starting from. Yeah. So I'm not suggesting that I'm going to do that, but just the whole idea of just kind of how I bring people in was so good. And I got that from inside one of the trainings and the membership. So very grateful for that.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes. I actually have many, many clients who have switched from free coaching calls to assessments. And actually I have clients who now charge for their assessments. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I love that you had brought this up, that your boyfriend had brought this up to you about that he charges for assessments in his work. So you can decide whatever makes sense for you, but I do love the assessment. It's such a good way to keep you on track to identify if you're talking to an ideal client, or if you're just talking to somebody who is tire kicking or who isn't really ready for you, or frankly, isn't a good fit for your business. And you think like, oh, I don't even know that I want to work with this person. They don't seem like the right fit. So, this makes me so happy. I'm so, so glad that's been your good takeaway. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So next question here is, how can people get a hold of you? Because I suspect there's some people out there that would love some more information around the Enneagram, to find out their own, like where they fall on the Enneagram, and also how to use that to best serve them in their business and grow their influence.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually have a guide on how to know which type you are on my website, which is sarahlynco.com. And it's right there on the front page. And the thing about this is that it talks about your type kind of through a business leadership lens. So it gives you an idea of how you might be seeing yourself at work, your strengths, and then maybe some roadblocks. And it has all 9 types. And then if you already know your type, I actually have a workbook for each type at sarahlynco.com/resources that deep dives into all the things, stress, growth, all the things about your type and how to use it in relationships, in the workplace, and your life in general.
And Sarah spells her name Sarah, Lynn, LYNN, co.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes. Thank you.
All right. And I just want to make sure.
Oh, and then I was going to say, I love Instagram. I probably spend too much time over there, and I'm at Enneagram MBA. But I always love your Friday posts, Nikki, on Instagram.
Thank you. I feel like we connected. Did we connect on Instagram first? I feel like I started following you, or I can't remember.
Well, here's how it happened is I heard you, I think it was the 10X podcast with Amy Woods.
Oh, I love Amy Woods. Yes.
Yeah. I get a lot from her. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Nikki was awesome. I got to follow her on Instagram. I was like, this great podcast episode. So yes, I do. That's where I'll like reach out to people is in the Instagram DM. So
I love that. I love that. Cause I know I see your stuff that comes up because I love actually to follow you on Instagram. I think you're putting out really interesting content. So go follow Sarah on Instagram. So we'll have our contact information, but now that we talked about, will you tell people how to find you on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm at Enneagram MBA. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd love to connect or just get a message or, I've made so many friends. Social media gets a bad rap and I totally understand why, but there's also like so many meaningful and fulfilling, relationships that have happened on Instagram too. So I can't say anything bad about it.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate how vulnerable you were to share. I think hopefully this was a really good discussion for you and your business, and also for the listener to maybe get some insight and some ideas about how they can apply this to their own business. Now, for you, the listener, if you have been listening to the podcast this last year, you might know that 2021 is the year of the question. So I like to end the episode with a question for you to maybe put in your back pocket, use in your sales conversations. And I don't think I actually have given this one yet. Sometimes I find my most simplest things are the things that I forget to tell you guys about. So this is the most simple question. And it's one of the most effective ways to help people make a decision. So when you're in a conversation with somebody and you've laid out a couple different offers or one, maybe usually 2 or 3 ways, never more than 3, by the way, ways to work with you, then you're going to say, which option do you prefer? Or if you're giving somebody an appointment time, so we could meet on Thursday or we could meet on Friday, which do you prefer? This is the question. Which do you prefer? You'd be so surprised at how often people will then pick, which is what we want them to do. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. If you're not yet a member of the Sales Maven Society, hopefully by now you know you are so invited and welcome to join. You'll get to hang out with the best quality people. Sarah's in there. And the other people you've heard on the podcast. It's really fun when we get on these live calls and people are like, I've heard your episode on the podcast and I know you from the podcast. So it's a way to really connect with some really amazing business owners. Plus you'll get access to me for sales guidance. You can join right now by going to salesmavensociety.com. And if you enter coupon code 47trial, that's number 4, the number 7, TRIAL, that will save you $100 off your first month of membership. And you can come check us out. You get access to absolutely everything. I don't keep anything hidden from you. Get access to everything in your first month. See if it's the place for you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.